This is Yusef here. Well, of course it's me. At my channel. This is Yusef at my channel. And I wanted to make a video about Basil of Caesarea. I know properly it's probably pronounced Caesarea or something like that, because Julius Caesar, but everybody knows it as Caesarea, like Caesarea Philippi. I wanted to make a video about Basil the Great. Now, I will still be able to use some of what he said because it pertains to this video. This is a reaction to, or a response to, Douglas Wilson. I had watched a few of his videos before, when I say before, earlier in the day, and I mentioned him in passing in one of the videos, I think, but I didn't make a full video basically repudiating everything he said. He has 3 videos. I think I'm going to post this as a response to his one, is the Eastern Orthodox Church the true church or the only church, or something to that effect. Well, first of all, he said, he says that the Eastern, I don't know where he got this from, or it wasn't even in the question, because the person said, well, since it's the oldest church, or what the person asking, he says, well, the Eastern Orthodox Church is not the oldest church. The Roman Catholic Church was before the Orthodox Church, and the Orthodox just split off from them. And then he in each video he's talking about, the misunderstanding of history and people being totally ignorant of theology and church history. Yet he displays enormous ignorance of church history, and for that matter, theology. And in the comments section, I was happy to see many people who I didn't know basically, blasting him. And a friendly name there, Magnus56, I believe. Now, let me go through and expose his lies. The Eastern Orthodox Church is not older than the Roman Catholic Church. Well, it's true that the early church was called Catholic, and I believe even Douglas Wilson will call himself Catholic when pressed, just as most Protestants who know anything about church history, because they're not Gnostic or Marcionite. So let's see which C. He doesn't even bring this up. There were 5 C's: Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, and Jerusalem. Constantinople and Jerusalem were added after the Council of Nicaea. Which, it's funny. He says, well, the Roman Catholic Church, alright, and then he refers to Orthodoxy. Well, if your husband wants to go to Constantinople, as if Constantinople is the, is like how the Roman Catholic is papal. The one thing in the video that he gets right is that Eastern Orthodoxy is different from Western Christianity, Roman Catholicism, and Protestantism, as Roman Catholicism is to Protestantism. In fact, it's even more different than the differences between Rome and Protestantism, and it's not like Roman Catholicism at all. It's true that that's a true statement that he made. Okay, now where were the first place that the followers of the way, or the followers of Jesus, where were they first called Christians? Antioch. Before Peter was Bishop of Rome, and if we're going by sola scriptura, he was head of the church at Antioch. Paul was in Antioch also. So it's funny, we have an icon of Peter and Paul holding, the church in their hands, and it's the symbol for the Antiochian church. Funny enough, Rome uses that same symbol. Obviously, the church is not a building, but anyways, he says, the injunction against idols and images are idols, and you don't dare bow down to them. And well, it's funny. The quote that I'm going to use from Basil of Caesarea, you guys would know him as Saint Basil the Great. He actually said, he says, to take the literal sense and stop there is to have a heart covered by the veil of Jewish literalism. Lamps are useless when the sun is shining. He also goes on to, he also says in another place, I know the laws of allegory, though less by myself than from works of other. There are those truly who do not admit to common sense of the Scriptures, for whom water is not water, but some other nature, who see in a plant, in a fish, or whatever their fancy wishes, who changes the nature of reptiles and of wild beasts to suit their allegories, like interpreters of dreams who explain visions in sleep to make them serve their own end. Which is exactly what the Protestants do. Now, Moses, I believe in documentary hypothesis, and I don't think the Ten Commandments were originally in the book, in the Torah, or whatever it was before our modern version of the Pentateuch, because I think it was known. I think when God spoke, it was known. I think the Ten Commandments are basically summed up, and you get the idea of what they're saying. Now, the injunction, if you're a Protestant and you believe that the words of the Torah are true, and that the words of the Bible are true, and I'm saying this especially if you're a Protestant, you have to say that the second commandment was an injunction against pagan images, of building your own idols, of crafting things to fit you, or of nature worship, or of cattle, or of whatever. Because in the Pentateuch, right after Moses gives these 10 commandments, one of them supposedly, you're not allowed to make an image of anything and bow down before it. Clearly, when you read the whole thing, it means pagan idols, those which are not commanded by God. Difference between idols and icons. Because directly after that, what do you have? Moses telling people to gaze upon the bronze serpent that he crafted. And you'd have to imagine there's some intent in their heart in doing that. But also, if you were to go to ancient Israel, you'd see people bowing down before a golden covered wooden box that people revered and feared, that had two cherubim on top, which were kind of like monsters. They were like a sphinx, they had wings and everything. So it's a molten image. It's carved wooden creatures covered in gold. And people bowed down before the ark. People feared the ark. People sprinkled blood on the ark. If you were to take anyone and place them in ancient Israel, and they were watching, if they were able to see into the Holy of Holies, or when the ark was being processed around, and you would come to the conclusion, well, that's an idol. They're worshiping that. When in fact, no, they worshipped the God whose mercy dwelled between the wings of the cherubim. But it was a molten image and it had creatures on top of it, which was the important part, called the mercy seat. They would sprinkle blood on it, and they would bow down to it all the time. And they were afraid of it. And there's an account of a man being killed by the ark, being struck dead as he tried to touch it because he was unclean. It was a severely holy object, according to the Bible. And this is in the Protestant Bible. This is in every Bible. So, and then he says the Eastern Orthodox pray to icons. When? No Orthodox ever prays to an icon, to an image, to anything. At the end, he kind of laughs and says, "Well, I kissed my wife." Yeah, and if she passed away, you'd kiss a picture of her. You'd have her in mind. Being surrounded by the saints, by images of the saints, actually draws us away from idolatry. Because what's the danger of it? What's the danger of crafting something? Nothing. It's when it guides you to sinful worship, and when it guides you away from the true God, and you start worshiping other gods or spirits or whatever. So you're surrounded by all the images of all these saints who confessed in one God, many of them post-Nicaea, believing in the Trinity. And they're with you in the worship of God. God became flesh in Christ. This man, Douglas Wilson, believes in the hypostatic union, so that Jesus Christ is the living image of God. So, God can break the Ten Commandments, because God created God in the flesh, didn't he? His other criticisms of Orthodoxy just become odd, because he says, well, there was a Bishop Epiphanius who and I mentioned this in the other video, who noted that there was, this painting of Christ in a church. I believe that's what he said. I'm not exactly sure how accurate he's repeating this, but he said he considered it to be, an idolatry, and that it was straying away from Christianity. Well, if there's an image in the church and somebody's criticizing it, it means even back then, even closer to the time of Jesus, people had images in the church. We're not dosists or docetics. One of the oldest churches that has been discovered at Dura Europa is covered in images. They found a synagogue not too far away from the same date, I believe mid-2nd century, also covered in images. Synagogues from the 1st century had a lot of images in them. So, no, the Jews didn't even understand it this way back then. Later Talmudic Jews might. And it's funny. This man knows nothing about Orthodoxy, and he's suggesting these Protestant writers who write about Eastern Orthodoxy. The practices of the Eastern Church are far older than the Roman Catholic Church, because the Roman Catholic Church had continually changed the liturgy over time. The Eastern Orthodox Church is happily frozen in the 5th century. And Constantinople. There are 5 sees. And then, since that time, there are more. They're not, we wouldn't call them sees, but heads, autocephalous, churches that are autocephalous, not just autonomous. Constantinople really doesn't hold much sway. There's Constantinople, and it rules some of the Greek churches, but there's also the Church of Greece, which has its own bishop and patriarch. What he doesn't know about Orthodoxy, I don't know, could fill the universe. It's odd. Maybe I should make more videos about him, but I just needed to make this refutation because he does not know what he's talking about. Praying to an icon, like worshiping the ark. The ancient Israelites didn't worship the ark, and the modern Orthodox do not worship images. You bash images, yet all of the Old Testament is filled with images. Oh, who gave you that? Who wrote, edited, and compiled that Bible? Was it us? I mean, when I say before, earlier in the day, and I mentioned him in passing in one of the videos, I think, but I didn't make a full video basically repudiating everything he said. He has 3 videos. I think I'm going to post this as a response to his one, is the Eastern Orthodox Church the true church or the only church, or something to that effect. Well, first of all, he said in each video he's talking about, you know, the misunderstanding of history and people being totally ignorant of theology and church history, yet he displays enormous ignorance of church history and for that matter theology. And in the comments section I was happy to see many people who I didn't know basically, you know, blasting him. This is Yusef here. Well, of course it's me. At my channel. This is Yusef at my channel. And I wanted to make a video about Basil of Caesarea. I know properly it's probably pronounced Caesarea or something like that, because the person, he says that the Eastern, I don't know where he got this from, or it wasn't even in the question, because the person said, well, since it's the oldest church, or what the person asking, he says, well, the Eastern Orthodox Church is not the oldest church. The Roman Catholic Church was before the Orthodox Church, and the Orthodox just split off from them. And then he in Julius Caesar, but everybody knows it as Caesarea, like Caesarea Philippi. I wanted to make a video about Basil the Great. Now, I will still be able to use some of what he said because it pertains to this video. This is a reaction to, or a response to, Douglas Wilson. I had watched a few of his videos before,